Blakely's Trapping Supplies offers a full line of trapping supplies to keep your trap line going. We are proud to offer the first of its kind subscription boxes for trappers. Each box is filled with a variety of trapping supplies, from traps and baits to tools and knives. Visit us at Blakely'sTrappingSupplies.com to see what all the excitement is about.
Mostly just coyote trapper. I'm still fairly new to all of it. I've trapped for about 5 years, but only did about a year and a half real hard. And I've learned a lot. I've spent a lot of time watching lots and lots of videos. We got to go to like 6 or 7 conventions last year. So I got to talk to a lot of people, meet some people that I've watched for years, inside and outside of trapping. So that was pretty cool, getting to meet all those people. So this is going to be my first demo. I've done lots of videos on YouTube and stuff like that, so I mean, I'm going to kind of do this the same way. But it'd be fairly simple. I got 2 sets that I'm going to show of how I normally would set for coyotes, depending on what I want to do, what time of year it is, kind of. But yeah, one of my favorite trap that I've used is the Duke 650. I just like that it's ready to go all the time. It's pretty inexpensive. It's just, you don't have to mess with a lot of twin catches or anything like that. So I like that. I also like the Berger number 3 dogless. No BS, I haven't got a chance to try those yet, but hopefully this year. But that's just kind of my preferred trap. Not any reason to it. Whatever you like, it's fine. Where I live, Southwest Missouri, we have a lot of rocks. It's hard for me to drive anchors in the ground, and almost impossible to pull them out without snapping the cable and then just the anchors there. I do a lot of trapping in other people's property, and I don't like to use stuff, especially anchors in the ground, because they might get caught by a tractor or something. So I've come to use a drag. I still use about half and half right now with anchors and drags. And the way I use my drags is a little different than most people. I found that I'll set about 6 or 7 foot off the tree, and I'll just wrap my chain around the tree with the drag. So my coyote's still there, but if he gets pulled off and I have the drag, it's going to stop him also, because where I trap on private land, I'm not worried about the animal being hidden or anything like that. So I've heard that it's hard to dig up here, but I see a hole there.
Yes, man. Look who's sitting behind me.
So usually my drags stay at a tree right here.
Can you say daddy?
I would just wrap this around the tree and I'd hook it, and that's where I would be, and then I might throw some leaves. I'm not going to worry about that end. I'll throw some leaves or grass right here to cover up the chain and any kind of shininess.
There's the new convention coordinator right there. Any complaints? You definitely want to get a hold of him.
I keep a sifter. I don't really ever use it because I just use straight peat moss. That's what I found to use. It's not super cold. It doesn't get super cold where I live. We might have a couple weeks where it's in the single digits. So I'm not worried about using wax dirt or wax sand or anything like that. I normally just use peat moss. And the way I like to do it, I don't really measure from where I'm going to put my dirt hole or anything like that. I don't think that's as big of a deal as a lot of other things. But normally I would say I'd put my bait hole right here, and I set my trap. I don't set it dog to the hole, I set it lever to the hole. That's just the way I've seen to do better. I don't come to the sprung traps near as often as I might. So when I'm doing my hole, I might just take this. I probably won't go very deep today, but here's my big one. Now I'm just going to go like this to make my hole. I'm just going to do it at a slight angle. I'm not going up and down. Just a slight angle facing me. So I'm going to put the trap. I'm going to go ahead and set this. Get my levers, spot for my levers here. I usually don't put my hole too deep. I'll usually be just a hair lower than ground level. And like my peat moss, I'll just take just a little bit just to coat the bottom. And then normally I found with peat moss I don't really need to use anything under my pan. If I'm going to, I might just stick some wax paper under there. It works fine for me. But now that I got my peat moss, I'm just going to press it down a little bit, and I will set my trap like that. You want to make sure your chain is not under your lever. So this is actually just a tad bit lower than I would normally do it. Again, you know, that's just personal preference with how you want to do that. I've done some this low, some a little higher. It just depends. A lot of times if I dig, you know, 4 inches in the ground, I'm going to have big rocks like that I can't pull up. So a lot of times I'll just throw peat moss on that and set right there. So like here, I probably wouldn't even put a pan cover in underneath. I'm going to set it like that, and I'm just going to take my peat moss, just go like that. I'm going to cover it. I'm going to get some underneath the jaws, some underneath the levers, and then I'm going to make sure my trap's solid, which it's solid in there. I always touch all 4 corners to make sure it's not moving. So there's no rocks in there. And if it is, you just get a little, this is like gravel here, so it's not going to work, but I'm going to stick a little dirt underneath the jaws. I'm going to keep working this to make sure it's solid. It doesn't really matter how long it takes. I mean, if I spend 5 minutes trying to get that done, that's better than coming here every day for a week with a trap laying on the ground because it was loose and something just cooked it out. So I'm going to spend extra time making sure that trap's solid. Once I get it solid, I'm just going to do this, and to me, it doesn't really matter how cold it is. I like to use peat moss, so even if I'm out there in February or November, I'm going to use peat moss because it helps me with the rain. And again, with our dirt, I could dig a hole this big, sift it, and I still might not have enough dirt to cover this. So I'm just going to end up just using peat moss. And if I want to, I'll take just a little bit of dirt and go to the top just to blend it in. So I'll just finish covering it up like that. And just take the back of my hand and go like that. And then again, I'll take leaves, grass, or whatever, put over that chain. I'm not going to go all the way. I'm probably just going to go about 2 or 3 foot. That way there's not anything glaring right here in their face. And then now with the hole, again, you're going to take, you know, whatever your preferred bait is. Put down the hole. In the summer, I like to use different baits for different times of year. In the summer, I'm going to use something that's a little more mild, especially like on our farm, because where I'm trapping, we process our own deer, so we have a lot of deer scraps and stuff. So the animals are really used to just eating that up. So they're not going to go over here to something that smells rotten. You know, you might, but you probably end up catching more possums over there. So I like to use just a fresh bait. So a lot of times, like I have a Predator Blues that's just, the meat's not aged, it's not tainted, it's nothing, it's just ground up, my ingredients are put up, it's soft, and that's how it is, and that's how I like that in the summer. Now if I'm talking end of December through January, when it might be, you know, always frost outside, might be 20s and the teens, I'll go to something that's a little stronger, like I have a Deadly Hallow 71, it's a real tainted meat, it's got a strong smell to it. I'll put that in there because it'll give me that extra smell. As far as lure, again, it's just your personal preference. If you want to do a gland lure, I'll probably pull that out probably later in the season, because usually in Missouri, by the time we start, we're getting colder, and I just seem not to have much success with gland lures when it's cold. So maybe towards the end of January, when it's starting to warm up or whatever. This year in Missouri, we're going to get to trap through February, so that'll be a whole different thing for me learning that month. But usually my gland lures I like to use later in the year, or I guess earlier in the year, later in the season. And that's usually when I do my gland, my urine and stuff like that. I did one nuisance job this year, and I tried running a couple of these sets with no luck. So I ended up using a urine post set, and I caught the alpha male in 2 days with that, and I ended up using that and started catching a lot more using that. So I feel like in the warmer months, that's probably what I'm going to start using. And basically, the way that is, this, like my trap and everything here is going to be the same. probably about that high. Don't have to be this high. And then what I'm going to do is I'll take a little urine and I'll go about 3/4 of the way up. And I'll just spray some urine on it and it'll leak down. Maybe just do a couple circles in the back. And then up here, you can use many different lures. I make a coon smoke stick, and I'll just put a little bit of that on there because that smoke is an extra enticer with the urine. And basically, when the coyote's running this trail, he's going to get close, he's going to smell that, and he'll want to come see this. And it'll be just like, you know, your dog peeing on a pole or a piece of furniture or something. He's going to see that, and he's going to want to have his pee on there. So when he does, he's going to step here. So this is more or less going to be a blind set because you're not drawing him downwards to that. You're having his attention up here. So when he comes to get that, he's just going to step right there. And a lot of times, if you want, you can put one on each side of the trail. To me, I don't seem that it's really mattered. I mean, you can run a few of them through one trail. I've gotten to where I'll usually run 2 or 3 sets at every location if possible. Just because I feel like if I'm going to be there, I'd assume just put, you know, one here, go over here 10 or 20 feet, put another one, maybe put another one 20 feet down. I've had them where I'm in a 100-yard span, I've had 6 sets along the road because like 2-track roads, that's where I put 95% of my sets because I've set many places and just those 2 tracks where I seem to pick up the because they just travel those. Especially if you get somewhere where you have a 2-track going to a field that splits off into another one. I'll put one here and I'll put one here and here. And a lot of times I'll catch my coyotes there and I'll catch a lot of gray fox too, especially if I'm close to where the haulers in the woods are. I caught 2 gray fox last year and that's how they both were on my sets like that. So that's mostly how I set my coyote sets. That's how I've done all of them.
Are you loose jaw to that? Your trap? I mean, that's the way you set your trap on that set. It's not
the way I'm going to have this is I want wherever my levers are. That's where I want the coyote walking.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm bringing instead of his attention here, it's here. He's going to be walking this way.
Okay.
Because I want him stepping over my.
Yep.
I've just seen that I've had more success that way. I've done it the other way, and I just seem like I get these big outs, and I don't know, just weird. There's no way around it. It's just what I've gone through. My personal preference is that's how I've liked it. Just especially with like the 650, because it's oval shaped, so now you're more long than you are wide.
Your stick is that close to the pan?
Yeah, I usually have it right up there because the coyote, he's going to come up here and he's going to pee right there. So you might catch a front paw, but more than likely probably catch a back paw as he's, you know, when he steps there to pick his leg up or when he goes to walk off. Because I mean, if you set your stick here, then he's going to be walking here now. If you have it here, he's going to be walking here. Yeah, you'll probably catch him either way you want to do it. I just feel like I want him closer to my trap and farther away. Because if he smells this with urine on it, he's already got in his mind that something else is there. So he's not even thinking about if something else might be there changing. He's thinking, oh, this is where I walk, somebody else is being there. This is my spot. So he's wanting to take control of that spot. So I mean, even if you're doing this, you say if you have a rock over here or something, or just in line with it, you can put a little gland lure right there. It's the same thing, that gland lure, that's just going to tell him somebody's been there and he wants that to be his spot. Or that's because once you get in the warmer months, say I think it was April that I did this job, you get into like March and April, you're kind of, I feel like you're kind of getting more out of the breeding season. And they're kind of, I mean, because let's see, your February, where I'm from, February's our heavy breeding season. That's when all the coyotes are wanting to go breed. And I feel like in April, you're kind of getting back to where the coyotes are kind of going to be, somebody's been here, I don't like that. And that's just what I've seen that's worked for me the best. I mean, like I said, I've never trapped it here before. You know, they might act different here. I've trapped places 20 miles away from where this place was, and they act completely different over there than they did here.
Did you ever catch a female in that set?
I've caught 3 in this set, and they've all been males.
So they don't have a gender problem?
No. I think, I don't know, to me, as far as the gender thing, I mean, I'm not like a lot of these people, I don't have 20, 30 years experience to tell you what I've, you know, in 10 years I've had, this is what's worked best for me. you know, I'm pretty new to this. Like I said, I've got a good year and a half, 2 years of doing this hard, so I'm still kind of new to it. This is just what I've seen to have success for me over and over and over. I've had other things that I've tried to do that, you know, I've ran the same thing, let it sit for 3 weeks, and never caught anything. I've had 2 or 3 sets that are nothing. And then I can, you know, pull those up, try something completely different, and then it starts working. And then I'll start using that more often. Because I don't know, you kind of want to play with it until you figure out what you want to use best. Because if you have a set that you like, and you've used it time and time, year again, year, and you're doing very well, then there's no reason to try and change that or make it better. You might tweak a few things, but I know like dirt holes, that's what most of my sets are. Some people don't like to use any dirt holes. They like to use all flat sets. I've hardly ever set flat set. I've known a few, but I usually just use dirt holes because to me it's easier. I feel like I can get them done faster. And I'm usually in open fields and stuff like that. Flat sets I feel like are usually more like on tree lines and stuff like that. We have a little more, you might have a log or something you can set it by, trails going in the woods, stuff like that. Now this scent post, I've done that before to a trail that was coming out of the woods, and I had it about 20 yards into the field, and that's where I was catching it. But I've never trapped in the woods. I've never trapped coyotes in the woods, so I don't have any experience with that. But I know that's usually when I see a lot of people doing their flat sets, stuff like that. So, if you guys have any questions for me, anything I've done, or anything like that.
How much pay attention are you running on that trap, Jamie?
It's not specific, but I like about 3 to 4. That's just usually what I like. Cause then
That's Mr. Blakely to you.
Okay.
Mr. Blakely.
All right.
But yeah, usually about 3 or 4 pounds.
Well, then, Mr. Blakely, how much chain are you running on your drags?
On my drag, on most of mine, it's 10 foot. Some of them are 8, but almost all of them are 10. And I usually got 4 swivel points on them. So I always cut my chain in half, and I'll put a swivel, and then I have 2 at the trap, and then I'll put a split ring at the end that kind of makes another swivel at the end of the drag. And then a lot of the ones that I do run anchors, I usually have just 2 or 3 swivels on that.
Like on that set right there, how far away from where you got your set would you bury your chain?
So as far as burying it, I might go back. What I normally do, maybe 6 inches. No, be careful, honey. I would normally cut me a trench about 6 to 8 inches, put the chain on the ground, and then I would go back about 1 foot or maybe 2 foot at most, just cover with leaves and grass and stuff, just so that, you know, they don't change. I mean, if you're talking way up there, I mean, that's, to me, that stuff there's not bothering them. I mean, this is where I'm going to be worried about, so. Yeah, I mean, that's about all I got. You guys have any more questions for me?
You ever have them drag this grapple off anywhere?
No, I've not. I've never had them drag off. Normally, what I've seen, which is crazy, one of the ones, and he actually went back and forth twice and jumped over the chain, went back under the chain and back around. And it took me a while to get all that on tape. I was like, I don't even know why he would do that, but this is normally my setup right here. Because, like I said, where I trap, I usually trap 2 or 3 weeks on this farm, then I'll go to this farm. Because a lot of the places I trap are deer hunters, and they don't want me to go in there until after deer season, where I can go after bow season, so I'll be bouncing around a lot. And, I mean, if I'm pulling a stake, I can work 20 minutes of trying to pull one stake and end up just snapping the cable, because we have so many rocks that, I mean, it's impossible to pull them out, and I hate leaving stuff like that behind on different properties. So I've done this to a few, and I just seem to like it. So most of my sets this year are going to be this way. Well, I appreciate you guys showing up and watching me. It's my first demo, so.
Oh, nice job.
I appreciate it. If you guys have any more questions ever, I'll be at my booth today, tomorrow. I don't know what time they're closing today, probably 5.
Sunday and Monday too?
Sunday and Monday. I'm going home Sunday morning. I got a long drive home. So.
Don't be a quitter.
The rest of us were leaving at 5, but they said you had to stay till 6.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll leave something. Now I'll be in Oklahoma in a couple weeks. It's not too far from my house. About 2 hours.
So that's where they can see you next, Oklahoma?
Yeah, I think that's be the 21st and 22nd. I'll be at the Oklahoma convention.
Okay. Well, if you're going to Oklahoma, look him up. Will you have more candy on your booth at that one?
Yeah, if there's just one candy.
All right. Bring your kid for candy, but Jamie doesn't like it when your kid takes all of his candy, right?
Yeah.
Don't be a